Welcome back, Principal Matters podcast listeners. I am Dr. Jen Schwanke, and I am here with William D. Parker. Hi, Will.
Hi, Jen.
And Will has a wonderful interview today with Bethany Bilodeau, and you guys are going to love it. So hang on for that. But we do have two things for you first. One is our fun Q&A that so many of you say that is a real highlight of every podcast episode. But also, I want to let you know that the question of the week is supported this week by Summer Pops Math Workbooks. Principals, when students practice math over the summer, their math scores go up. So what's your summer math plan this year? A great way to start is by ordering free summer workbook samples at summerpopsworkbooks.com. And so, Will, you have a doozy of a question today. You gonna throw that out there
Yeah,
for him?
I do. I do want to say this about our sponsor from Summer Pops. I've looked over those math books and they are phenomenal. And this is the time to get your samples because they're free. So reach out to summerpopsworkbooks.com. We're so thankful that they sponsored this part of our podcast episode. All right, Jen, I told you that I didn't actually want to talk about this question, but it's one that came through one of my surveys. How do you support and develop your teachers who struggle with classroom management? And I'll just be honest. One of the reasons I struggle to answer this question is because it's so hard.
Mhm.
When a teacher is struggling in classroom management, it's really hard to come up with in 5 minutes the things that you would do to support them or to develop them. But what are some thoughts you've got?
Yeah, it is a hard question because like you said, every classroom management issue is a different root cause. You know what when I was a principal, I think I made judgments about teachers who air quote couldn't control their classroom. And I regret that. I think for the best thing a principal can do to support a teacher who's struggling with classroom management is get to the why. Is it norms weren't set early and well? Is it the makeup of the students? Is it the structures that are in place within the school for consequences and rewards? Is it lack of consistency? Is it the teacher's lack of engagement? Like, what is it? To the earlier point, it's hard to answer this because there's a zillion different reasons that the problem exists. And so I think through conversation, through lots of observation, through consulting with experts, which we can talk about here in a minute, we can get to the why. But you can't fix a problem until you know why it happened.
Yeah, I agree. So let me get really practical. If I was talking to someone and I only had 5 minutes like we do, we got maybe two left, and they were like, man, well, how do I support and develop this teacher struggling with classroom management? The first thing I would say, go be with that teacher. Do not try to armchair quarterback them. You need to probably increase the amount of time you're stepping in, observing, watching, so that your feedback isn't just based on when things fall apart, which is sometimes what happens with school leaders because we have so many other responsibilities. We become aware that classroom management is a problem when it falls apart, and then we're having to clean up. And so, the best way to provide someone with feedback and support is to try to do it. And so I know sometimes kids change behavior when you're there. I understand that, but not being there shouldn't be an option.
Well, let me tell you, the most I've tried every which way but Sunday on how to support teachers with classroom management problems. And the best result I ever had, to your point, it wasn't me because the students did act differently and there was a lot of emotion from between the teacher and I. The best result was when I asked a retired teacher to come back and spend 8 weeks as a sub in the classroom. And that teacher was masterful at classroom management. And I gave her enough time and paid her the
Mhm.
money as a sub to really get to know that teacher and the students. And by that point, the teacher knew she had a problem because I had said so and we had talked about it. So she was open to that because she knew that if it didn't get better, we were going to have a different conversation. So she was open to the collaboration. The retired teacher was just glad to help, and we saw fundamental change. And then the next year, when the retired teacher was off golfing or whatever wonderful thing she did as a retired teacher, the problem had been drastically improved.
I love that. And so let me give a shameless plug to our friends Erica Bear and Tiffany Burns, who wrote a great book on connecting through conversations. And that book is really it's a handbook to help teachers learn how to de-escalate situations, learn how to resolve conflict, learn how to set up scenarios for success versus just responding. All those little tricks, Jen, that veteran teacher was able to sit down and do for 8 weeks. There are good resources available for learning to do that as well. Anything you want to recommend?
No, I do. I haven't read that book yet. I want to. I can't wait to read that because I think it is about communication and working through any barriers that are in place.
Well, I will just add one other thought as we're wrapping up. And what I love about what you did was when I was a student teacher, I was with a master English teacher who not only was helping me as an intern, but I remember one day in particular, she said to me when the day ended, Will, I want you to come with me next door. We're going to visit a colleague. She walked over the next door, first year teacher, and she said, Hey, Will, and I just wanted to check on you. Tell us how things are going. And she started crying and she was expressing all these concerns. And my friend, her name was Myrna Morton. I'm just going to give her a big plug here. She spent the next half hour doing some super practical things, helping her reorganize her room, rework her seating chart, giving her some practical strategies to try the next day. So you talk about a built-in coach. Here she was right next door, but someone who, so we've got to also harness the strength and the power of our teams to help each other through these processes too, because it's not learned overnight. And especially with younger teachers in particular, a lot of people leave the profession because of that area of classroom management. And so anything that we can do to help is great. Well, Jen, it's hard to do this in 5 minutes. We did it in 7. So thank you for the opportunity to just respond to that question. And Principal Matters listeners, if you have other resources you'd love to recommend, feel free to jump on the post that accompanies this at our website or send Jen and I an email at will@williamdparker.com. Or Jen, how can they reach out to you?
They can find me at jenschwanke.com.
All right. I hope you enjoyed today's amazing conversation with Bethany Bilodeau. And until next time, thanks for doing what matters. Support for Principal Matters comes from DigiCoach and its walk-through tool. I want you to picture walking through classrooms, observing teachers and students. In just 10 minutes, you'd hope to see good instructional strategies and student learning taking place, or maybe you have questions about something missing from instruction or planning. Instead of taking 30 minutes to write a follow-up email or leaving your teacher feeling unsupported, wouldn't it be great to have an app on your phone or tablet where you could send immediate feedback while also collecting data? Enter DigiCoach, a customizable walkthrough and coaching tool created by school leaders for school leaders with thousands of pre-written, research-based commendations and coaching tips empowering you to provide quick, actionable feedback. DigiCoach is not an evaluative tool. Instead, it is an easy-to-use feedback and coaching tool, an efficient way to store your notes and collect data for improving student outcomes right in your hands. It can be used on iPhone, Android, or tablets and includes speech-to-text functions. Make the most of your walkthroughs with a tool that saves you time and enhances meaningful feedback to your teachers. Go to digicoach.com to learn more, and please tell them Principal Matters recommended you check them out. That's digicoach.com. Hi, friends. Did you know that Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, has been downloaded over 1.5 million times? We are so proud to share conversations, interviews, and resources to support leaders like you who are serving school communities worldwide. And I'd like to invite you to explore our books, our professional development offerings, our Grow Academies, our masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations, because we're here to help you and your teams build schools that you're proud to call home. So here's my question. How are you planning to keep growing in the semester ahead? We're booking events right now for the next 2 years, and we would love to serve you in person or virtually. So visit williamdparker.com and click services, or email me at will@williamdparker.com to connect. I would love to hear from you. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's show.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Principal Matters Podcast, episode 441. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. This week, we're going to talk about ease the pain. Guidance for Safety and Regulation with my special guest, Dr. Bethany Bilodeau. Dr. Bethany Bilodeau is an expert in human behavior with a doctorate of arts in leadership. And she has a remarkable career that began teaching high school biology in Guam. She has designed innovative programs to help students achieve academic success and holds numerous certifications in behavioral therapies. She's been recognized with multiple awards, including the 2024 Business of the Year in Education and Business Excellence Award for Social Equity. Her upcoming guidebook, Ease the Pain in the Classroom, A Guide for Safety and Regulation, is coming out in 2025. So by the time, Bethany, that listeners hear this episode, that book will be hot and ready. So why don't you fill in the gaps on that intro? Welcome to Principal Matters, and tell listeners something else they may be surprised to know about you.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here today, Will. It's such a pleasure to get to spend some time with you and your listeners, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. As far as I did not have a great educational experience for my first probably 8 years of school, which surprises many people considering my amounts of certifications and educational experience that I have. But I spent most of my elementary childhood hiding in the building. And I would have to go up to the library to work with the Title I department. That was when they first started Title I's. And it was one of those really weird libraries in a very old building built in like the 16 or 1700s where the ceiling was only about 5 feet tall. So the poor teachers would have to duck in there to go in there. And it was creepy. So I would hide in all sorts of places in the building and then just go back to class eventually. And they thought had gone up for my services and everything else. So, and did that pretty much the whole way through elementary and had some challenges through middle school as well. And had a personal family tragedy that ended up turning me really around and saying, I've got to figure out a way to make this work. I had some learning disabilities myself. I had some other challenges, but I said, I've got to figure out how to make this work. And I had watched myself struggle and my brother struggle, and I just really felt strongly that I didn't want to see other kids struggle. And I was a foster parent for years and years and have several adopted children, and feel very strongly that kids deserve the opportunity to be successful. Teachers deserve the opportunity to be successful, and so do administrators, and so do families.
So thank you for that background, Bethany. And there's so much I would love to dig into that we won't have time to, but I'm just, because I'm so curious. I know that you're geographically in New Hampshire,
Yes.
taught school in Guam.
Yeah.
Where were you as a child with buildings that were so old?
I was in New Hampshire still, in this building. It was interesting because my great-great-grandfather had gone to the same school that I had gone to in New Hampshire. And it was one of the oldest buildings in New Hampshire. And it's still a school. It's now a charter school. But it was just this interesting, very old building with nooks and crannies everywhere. Not to mention the fact that my first grade teacher actually passed away. My second grade teacher got a divorce and moved in the middle of the year. My third grade teacher got into a car accident where she was out of almost the rest of the year for probably 6 months, and it was really significant. And when I got to fourth grade, I said, I'm really sorry. Something bad is going to happen to you.
Oh my gosh.
Was like, no, I promise, Bethany, nothing bad will happen.
Okay. I'm just going to say straight up that your life sounds like it. My brother always says that the truth is crazier than fiction. It could be a book, and I'm already it is. Yeah, it is a book. And so I'm already like picturing myself in that setting with the 5-foot ceiling. Is like, this is like an amazing setting for any kind of story.
That was probably my favorite part of the book to write, was that primary thing. And people who have read it, even people who know me very well, are like, I never in a million years would have thought that was what happened.
Well, let's stay here for just a moment, because your personal traumas and experiences and challenges as a child, and then your care for children as a foster parent and an adopting parent, have also motivated you for the work you're doing now. So talk about what that work looks like. Because I've obviously had the privilege to meet you before this conversation, but I want listeners to really understand what does Bethany Bilodeau do in really helping guide safety and regulation for some of our most challenging kids.
So we provide behavioral supports to school districts for students who are significantly disruptive. Honestly, what that really means is kids who are extremely aggressive, we end up with. So the student that shuts down and isn't communicating, we sometimes get that student, but we're getting the students that are getting kicked out of class, kicked out of school, kicked out of placement facilities. Those are the students that come to us. And for educators, they know them as the tier threes and beyond. Um, Typically, once they move to tier one, tier two, they're no longer on our caseload. We serve primarily that population. We reintegrate them into the general education setting, typically within 3 months. We run large programs in school districts, and we have like a 92% success rate. I ran the data yesterday for something that I needed to know, so which is significant. So we don't typically stay with kids we're not in schools for long term. We're there for, a year, maybe a year and a half. Once all their tier three kids are off of our caseload, we're back out of that school and into another school that needs us.
Now, I know that in addition to your book, you have a behavior boot camp for people who maybe can't access you in person, but want to access your content online. So I want to park here for a little bit because as I've explored your work, I know that you talk about for helping educators work with challenging students. You talk about things like establishing trust, mirroring, labeling, illusions of control. So take us, teacher Bethany Bilodeau, take us for a little bit into some of the strategies that have been the most helpful for you as you're working with educators who are also working with the most challenging students.
Yeah, so I've been super, super fortunate where we've been able to, as a team, work with some of the most prominent body language experts and facial action reading experts in the nation. So we've been very lucky where they've spent significant amounts of time, sometimes 6 months to more than a year, working with us on a weekly basis so that we can really read body language and determine how we need to gauge ourselves in order to interact with that student. So much so that even with the mirroring and with labeling, I can walk into a school, be signing in, and they'll say, Bethany, there's a kid having a crisis in the kindergarten, first grade hall. And I'll walk down, there's 3 staff, the kid's having a meltdown. They'll look at me and say, we're on hour 2. And I'll say, okay, I got it. And they'll walk away and within seconds can turn that kid around. Does face change help? Absolutely. But it's really about how I stand, how I interact. I'm able to present empathy and confidence just through my body features, which is significant at helping kids gain trust very, very quickly. And it's the same when I work in a classroom. If I walk into a classroom and I'm working with a group of students, or I'm walking into a cafeteria and need to get things under control, we can do that very fast just off of some simple body language techniques. So some things that people might find helpful is if the thumbs are pointed up or lifted up, that actually conveys confidence to the person they're interacting with. If the head is tilted slightly to the left at the top, that conveys empathy. And people don't know this when they're interacting with someone. They just know that they feel that they trust that person and that they feel confident that that person can keep them safe. And that's significant. Just those little cues of things to do. There's certain stances you do with your feet in order to make sure that your feet are angled properly so that the person feels you're paying attention and you're attuned. And there's certain things that students do where I'm like, ooh, that kid's not listening. Even though they think they're listening, they're not listening. You can tell by the certain angle of the chin and the feet movement and the knee movement, and be able to really figure out how to modulate your own body and movements to get those learners engaged. And it's really simple things.
Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second for Principal Matters listeners for me to just say what's going through my mind. So, Bethany, because I was a classroom teacher for 11 years and then an admin for a long time. I used to have this saying about like Jedi sense. Like there's something about really experienced educators that sometimes when something's getting ready to happen before it happens, or sometimes you can step into a really large crowd of people and you can read the room and you can find the student, whatever that thing is that's getting ready to disrupt the whole thing. You can see it before it takes place. And so I want to pause here because
Absolutely.
you're one of the first persons I've ever heard explain what's going on in the mind of a Jedi teacher who really understands how to dissect the most challenging behaviors when kids are just melting down. So let's stay here just a little bit longer. So when you talk about things like a confident presence and the way you balance and even the postures of your hands and knees and feet, talk about how you became aware, because those are obviously skills that you've learned to master and apply. How did you become aware of those things? And how do you help others to learn how to recognize those same methods in their work?
So for a while, I was like, I know that something I'm doing is working, but I don't quite know what it is. And that's
Mhm.
where I sought out experts in the field to really break a lot of this information down and say, the reason why it works is this. And if you add this other element, it won't work. Or if you add this other element, it will work better and
Mhm.
everything, so that we were able to do that. And then we broke each piece of it down. So we said, okay, here's the stance of safety. So that's the first thing I teach almost every training that, 14 different trainings that I do. The first thing I do is teach everybody the stance of safety. So I, go into, this is how you hold your hands. This is where the placement needs to be in your body. This is where your arms should be. This is how your chin should be angled. This is how your head should be angled. This is what your eyes need to look like. If you can see these things below the eyes, if you see the white below the eyes, then you know that the child is very frightened. If you see the white above the eyes, you know they're going to get aggressive. I mean, there's very telling signs that a child, that where anyone, a person just in general, is going to get aggressive. And I'll go through like the 5 list of things that tell they're going to get aggressive. There's white above the eye. You can see the ripple in the jaw. You can see the bubbling on the chin with the skin. There's just very significant things that will show. You'll see the hand splay and the chest pop and all those little pieces, but you can catch it 5 minutes before that too, simply through the anglings of their bodies and things like that, which is why that's why we're able to make progress so quickly with kids, because we can see it, we can get them out of the situation, we can de-escalate them quickly so that they don't continue to have these chronic behaviors of aggression.
You're blowing my mind. So what I love what I love about this is just such a great dissection of skill set that is so behaviorally centered. And I'm already just imagining as Principal Matters listeners are listening to this conversation, they're just at the end of today's show, we're going to share your contact information, Bethany, and your phone's going to be blowing up because people are going to want to know, how do I get, I want to sit through this teaching so that I have such a better understanding of how to dissect those skill sets. At the same time, I want to come back to, in addition to those important strategies, the heart side of the work that you do, which begins with establishing trust. So talk about that for a little bit in terms of how you have to have both the heart and the skills. I call it the heart and the head when you work with any students.
And that's significant in how we're presenting our bodies and that sort of thing. But we also, every student we work with, and it's funny because school districts tell me this all the time. I'll say something about a kid and I'll say, oh, I love that student. And they'll say, Bethany, you say that about every student. And I'm like, I genuinely feel that way. I genuinely find what I love the most about that person, no matter who I'm working with, whether it's a student, a staff, whatever. And I focus on that attribute. And I use that over and over again when I'm talking to them and when I'm communicating with them, because I want them to know that that is a wonderful thing. They're a gift. And once they feel that way, how they behave is completely different than how they've behaved before. And that can reinvent who they are. And it can head so many other things off on the pass. I mean, I go into a lot of other aspects because I'm very concerned about the amount of stress that educators are under and that students are under. But for students also, we're looking at them having a lot of significant health issues as they become adults, because they are under so much stress as children and because of these behaviors that they might have and the toxic stress they're undergoing. So having that change of identity is critical for them to be able to move forward and actually get to a better point. But everything about my exterior person and my internal person is to convey warmth and, genuineness and authenticity and love to this person, because oftentimes the kids I'm working with, they're not acting real lovable.
I love
People
that
are
so
like,
much.
they're done. They're like, just keep them out of my classroom. I've had it. So we have to really rebuild some of that social value between the educator and between the student first, before we can even work on the peers, so that the teacher can actually help integrate them into the fold and really get them to be a part of their community, and help to execute that. And that's tough sometimes. If they've been harmed physically or emotionally by the students, sometimes they feel like, I don't know if I want to go there. And that's, and I can totally understand that. It's hard, it's painful. They've got a lot of kids to worry about. And a lot of that comes from the fear of, are they going to hurt one of my other students again? Are they going to hurt one of us again? And that's scary because it feels like it's out of their control.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Why is IXL used in 95 of the top 100 U.S. school districts? Because it works. Research across 45 states show that IXL schools outperform other schools on state tests. With IXL, you get a personalized online learning and teaching solution that helps you improve achievement, empower teachers, track progress, and more. This one platform for K-12 helps teachers accomplish what normally would require dozens of other tools. For example, as students practice skills, IXL automatically adapts to ensure each learner is always supported and challenged at the right level. IXL also provides every student with a personalized learning plan to help them close knowledge gaps effectively. One of my favorite things about IXL is their personalized test prep tool. For exams like the SAT and ACT, IXL will analyze a student's most recent score and generate a custom list of skills to help them boost their scores. If you want to take the load off of your teachers so they can do their best work, IXL can help. Learn more at IXL.com/PM today. Principals know a strong school starts with a strong team, making sure teachers feel heard, supported, and valued. But in a busy school year, it's easy to miss how your staff is really doing. That's why I'm excited about Alpaca, a new way for school leaders to listen to their teachers and support them well. It all starts with one simple question: how are you doing? And how easy is that? Alpaca's quick pulse surveys give teachers a way to share honest feedback, no long forms or 1 to 5 scales, just meaningful insights that help you know where to celebrate and where to focus. And celebration, Alpaca makes it easy. Each month, Alpaca delivers a teacher celebration kit with care packages, recognition ideas, and fun activities. It's effortless for principals and ensures teachers feel heard and celebrated. With Alpaca, your teachers will feel heard and you will feel like a stronger leader. Make a real difference in your school's culture at alpacapacks.com/Principal Matters and get 15% off just for Principal Matters listeners. That's alpacapacks.com/Principal Matters. So let's talk about that next, because I love what you say about trust, finding what you love about someone and focusing on that gift, even as you're dealing with the exterior behaviors that sometimes are disruptive or crazy or scare you. I just had to pause and say this out loud. I just think students are just so incredibly fascinating, and I love to travel. And so one of my favorite things is to go to some place I've never been before and just to stand and soak in the awe of a landscape or the ocean or mountains or a foreign country. But there's just something so amazing about standing in a school. I got this just a couple of days ago. I went and visited a friend of mine at a city school close to where I live, and just got to spend the afternoon walking the halls with him and talking to students. You want to talk about variety and gifts and beauty and quirkiness and just surprise things that if you're like, I want to have an experience I've never had before, just go to a school. You're going to see it in the faces of kids every single time you interact with them. Now, having said that, you said something else earlier too, that students with stress and trauma often sometimes it creates significant health issues for them even later in life. And this is just, I know that's a scientific finding. That's not just something you're saying. So I also wanted to ask you about this, if you don't mind. mindfulness is also something that you teach. And so I'm just really curious, how has it been influencing for you, and have you found it helpful for the students that you work with?
For me, it's significant. We've had it in our home for many, many years. Some of my youngest children started meditating at about 18 months, and they meditate every day. We meditate it together every day. And, the students will tell me, and this isn't the first skill we teach. This is after we've gotten them to a point of safety and regulation. But, the students, the first time, I'll bring it up or something, they'll be like, F that, Dr. B. There's no way I'm doing that stuff. But we sneak it in. We sneak a lot of stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do I'll stand near them and I'll audibly breathe, doing diaphragmatic breathing with an extended exhale and everything like that. And I'll do that. And then I'll say, oh, I wonder how many light fixtures are in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll start counting and I'll be like, oh, I forgot already. And they'll keep counting and then they'll tell me, oh, there's 12. And I'm like, oh, really? There's 12. That's great. So, and we just sneak it in at the beginning, and then we transition into meditation over time. And then the surliest of kids that were angry and aggressive and verbally aggressive, I'll walk in and be like, oh, we meditating today? And they'll say, I'm hoping I got a meeting. Let me see if we can squeeze it in. Come on, Dr. B, we need our meditation. And I'm like, you got it, buddy. You should be leading it.
You have a place in your online course where you give like 10 tips for mindfulness. So talk about, and you don't have to share all of them, but just talk about some of the things that are like helpful takeaways for people that may not have a practice of mindfulness that might be interested in seeing how it could help them or help kids.
I think keeping in mind that it doesn't have to be something big. It can
Mm-hmm.
be something as small as a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And for many, that's as long as they can tolerate at the beginning. And that's okay. And it's just single tasking. Start with single tasking. So doing one thing at a time. So get yourself into a proper breathing technique. And what I mean by that is that many of us breathe in the upper part of our rib cage and we breathe pretty rapidly. So try to take a deep breath where the lower part of your stomach is actually going in and going out, and your exhale is longer than your inhale. That helps to push your body into the parasympathetic. Once you're there, just do one thing. Just focus on one thing. So it could be something as simple as filling the dog water bowl, or I'm writing out the daily practice of what we're going to be doing today in my classroom, or we are taking down all the chairs, whatever it may be. Try to focus on just that and not get into all the other stuff in our heads, because we're really good at bringing up where problems kind of keep occurring in our lives. And we run through those over and over and over again. And we do that to try to find solutions. But unfortunately, if you're analyzing those problems when you're already stressed, you're not going to come up with a solution. You're just causing your body more stress. So you have to analyze them when your body is calm.
I was a writing teacher, so you're just reminding me sometimes of the practices of close observation, being aware of your senses, asking kids to use their imaginations. And so it's so interesting how those practices can translate across curriculums. I mean, there's so many ways you can work these practices into the activities you're already doing with students, and they may not recognize it. It's lowering the emotional temperature, that it's helping them regulate, it's helping them feel comfortable. Sorry that I said this earlier, but we're analyzing those Jedi powers that teachers often have that they don't know how to dissect. Now, I want to ask you this because I want to respect your time, and I know that in my audience we have aspiring leaders, newer leaders, but some veteran leaders, some seasoned leaders. I've had a lot of listeners, though, when they reach out to me, they often are talking about feedback for change, something they're stepping into that may be new, or maybe it's just a new season, because you know that the beautiful thing about school is we're always stepping into new seasons. So I'm just curious.
And I love that.
Yeah, but as a veteran educator and leader, especially doing the kind of work you're doing, I'm just curious, what advice would you give someone who's stepping into a new season of change or challenge?
I think the biggest thing is that you have to feel safe. You have to feel safe and be regulated before you're willing to take that risk. And we see that time and time again, that when people are in stress, and I see that more this year in schools than I've ever seen it before. People have come in, they're already stressed at the beginning of this school year. They're already anxious, and they see a new program's coming and they're like, oh, can't do it, can't do it. And they're absolutely right. When you're functioning in that state of stress, it's really hard to take risk. Like your body does not want to do that. Your brain does not want to do that. And so your body just ends up taking over and going into what it knows. It's like, these are our habits every day. We get up, we turn the coffee on, we have coffee at this time, we get to work by that time, and we follow our routine because that's what feels safe and that's what feels comfortable. In order to break out of that, you've got to feel safe. You've got to be regulated enough to be willing to take those risks and then want to take those risks. I am someone who I've been told that I really like to take risk. It's something that I really get jazzed about. I enjoy seeing something new, learning something new, experiencing something new. But I feel very safe and very regulated most of the time. My stress tolerance level is very high. So, even things like I walked into a school the other day and I went into one of the programs, and one of the students, a high school student, said, this is what I want to work for. I'm going to do schoolwork, but then I want to be able to have 10 minutes of listening to the specific sound. And I said, okay, what sound is it? And she said, I want to be able to listen to the sound of stomachs gurgling. And I was like, I've never heard that one before. Why? And she said, I just really love it. And I was like, I was like, you back up. You've got to put on the sounds for me. And she's like, hold on, let me finish this math assignment and then I'll put it on. So she finishes the math assignment. She puts it on. And I was like, well, that makes me have to go to the bathroom. That's the purpose of listening to this. But she was like, I just love it, Dr. B. And I was like, you've given me a new one today, girl. Thank you for that, because I've never had a student before tell me that they wanted to listen to the sound of stomachs gurgling.
I didn't know that was a thing. Now I do. So you said two things.
No, I'm going to have to do some research on it.
Yeah. So you said two things that I want to circle back to. That there's so much wisdom. One is, and this is so funny because to me, these are two sides of the same coin. One is, in order to be able to take on a new challenge, you first have to feel safe and regulated. That's thing one you said. And then thing two you said is, in order to grow, you have to be willing to embrace change and risk. And so isn't that interesting that both of those are true at the same time? So I'm going to speak directly to my listeners, Principal Matters listeners, as you, especially in the school setting, the most important thing you can do for your teachers and your students and your community members is to create a place where when everyone steps in, they know that it's safe. They know what to expect. They understand the ground rules. This is not a place that's scary. This is a place where we all already anticipate what's going to happen today and where we're going to be and what the boundaries are for where we are. Yet at the same time, with that place of safety, now there's permission for curiosity and discovery and risk taking and challenge and the things that make students grow and learn. We just described a beautiful classroom settings, what we just described. And now how do you do that campus wide? So the thing that works for a child is the same thing that works for a classroom, is the same thing that works for a campus, is the same thing that works for a community. And so to bring this full circle, Dr. Bilodeau, your mission is to ease the pain for educators that are trying to do this. So as we wrap up, I just want to know, how can our listeners stay connected with you, and what other parting words of advice would you give as they are trying to figure out how to ease the pain while they move towards safety and regulation?
I would say for the chronic offenders too, for those students and I know for administrators, this takes up 90% of their time. And for teachers too, that takes up 90% of their energy that they're working with those particular students. And they're doing the same behaviors over and over and over again. So if you want to break that cycle, if you want for things to change, then a huge part of that is that when you deliver that consequence and when you deliver whatever has to be done because of the protocols and everything else, that you're telling the child also, and we'll see you back. And we are looking forward to your return. And then when they come back, they've got to be received. They have to be received with empathy and care. Because if they're not, you're going to see that behavior demonstrated again very quickly. So of course, there's lots of other components to changing those behaviors, but that I think is the most vital as far as getting them on track. If that student comes back in and there's kind of no one to connect with them, and it doesn't even matter what age group they are, there's no one to connect with them, they feel very unstable and unsettled. They feel very unsafe, they're unregulated, and you're going to have another incident very quickly. And it doesn't matter if they've been out on a suspension or they've been out for a period of time from an illness or something else. It will, unfortunately, it will repeat itself. So having that empathy and making sure that there's a receiving system to get that student back in and connected and feeling welcome is just, I think, vital to breaking that chronic behavior that's going
Such
on.
great advice. What I love about that advice, and it's, and I've seen this confirmed in practice because I know a lot of leaders who require reentry meetings for any student that's been exited out just for that very reason, which is welcome back. We want you here. What concerns or fears do you have? Let's answer any questions that you have, because then you're setting them up for success versus placing them right back into a place where they don't feel safe, they don't feel regulated, they don't feel ready. And so we can save ourselves a lot of time in preventing behaviors by those kinds of actions too. How can listeners stay connected with you and your resources if they want to learn more or if they want to read your new book?
The easiest way to get a hold of us is at thebehaviorbootcamp.com, or you can find us online at most social media platforms at the Behavior Bootcamp as well.
Well, we will put that in the show notes. And Dr. Bethany Bilodeau, thank you for your commitment to loving kids and to helping schools across the world. And Principal Matters listeners, you can find out more about her work and the Behavior Bootcamp in the show notes. But until next time, thank you for doing what matters. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.